He sees you when you're sleeping, and he knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good, for goodness sake. You better watch out. And you better not cry. In most Western countries, the most a badly behaved child can expect at Christmas is not receiving any gifts, or a lump of coal. But what about in other countries around the world? From a cult-like celebration that surrounds a skeleton horse demon, to an annual festival that celebrates a homicidal witch. These are 7 dark Christmas traditions around the world. Welcome to a special Christmas edition of Shadow Matter, and in our own Shadow Matter way, we will celebrate Christmas by exploring 7 of the darkest Christmas traditions around the world. It's that time of year again, when countries the world over celebrate that special day on December the 25th by giving and receiving gifts and spending time with their families. Most have a fairly sanitized version of Christmas that they celebrate with normal traditions that we in the English-speaking parts of the world are accustomed to. However, in other parts of the world, things can be a bit more dark and frightening. So without further ado, let's explore 7 of the darkest Christmas traditions around the world. Pere Fouettard, French for Father Whipper, is a character who accompanies St. Nicholas on his rounds during St. Nicholas Day, December the 6th, and dispenses corporal punishment in the form of beatings to all the naughty children. He is mainly known in the far north and eastern regions of France, in the south of Belgium, and in French-speaking Switzerland. Although similar characters exist all over Europe, the whipping father was said to bring a whip with him to spank all the naughty children who misbehaved. The most popular story about the origin of Pere Fouettard was told about the year 1252. An innkeeper, or a butcher in other versions, captures 3 boys who appeared to be wealthy on their way to enroll in a religious boarding school. Along with his wife, he kills the children in order to rob them. One gruesome version tells that they drug the children, cut them into pieces, and stew them in a salting barrel. St. Nicholas discovers the crime and resurrects the children. After this, Pere Fouettard repents and becomes St. Nicholas's partner. A slightly different version of the story claims that St. Nicholas forced Pere Fouettard to become his assistant as a punishment for his crimes. The most common depiction of Pere Fouettard is of a man with a sinister face, dressed in dark robes with scraggly, unkempt hair and a long beard. He is armed with a whip, a large stick, or bundles of switches. Some incarnations of the character have him wearing a wicker backpack in which children can be placed and carried away. Sometimes, he merely carries a large bundle of sticks on his back. These malevolent goblin-like creatures originate from the Southeast European and Anatolian folklore. The Kallikantzaroi are said to be goblins, of which they spend most of the year underground, trying to bring about the apocalypse. Stories about the Kallikantzaroi, or its equivalents, can typically be found in Greece, Bulgaria, Turkey, Serbia, Albania, Bosnia, and Cyprus. The Kallikantzaroi are believed to dwell underground but come to surface during the 12 days of Christmas, from December 25th to the 6th of January. In the Greek folklore, it is believed that the Kallikantzaroi stay underground, sawing the trunk of the world tree so that it will collapse along with the earth. However, according to folklore, when they are about to see the final part, Christmas dawns and they are able to come to the surface. They forget the tree and come to bring trouble to the mortals. Finally, on the Epiphany, 6th of January, the sun starts moving again and they must remain underground to continue their sawing. They see that during their absence the world tree has healed itself, so they must start working all over again. This is believed to occur annually. There is no standard description of appearance of the Kallikantzaroi. They are regional variations as to how their appearance is described. Some Greek illustrators have imagined them with some animal parts, such as hairy bodies, horse legs, or boar tusks. Other groups see them as small humans with a horrible odor. They are predominantly male, often with protruding sexual characteristics. Many Greeks have imagined them as tall, black, and hairy with burning red eyes, goats' or donkeys' ears, monkeys' arms, tongues that hang out from their heads that are huge. Nonetheless, the most common belief is that they are small black creatures, humanoid, apart from their long black tails. and said to resemble little black devils. They are also mostly blind, speak with a lisp, and love to eat frogs, worms, and other small creatures, such as children. According to Alsatian law, Hans Trapp was a local man renowned for his greed and unscrupulousness. He used witchcraft and deals with the devil to become rich. After becoming excommunicated from the Catholic Church, he lost his wealth and social standing. He took to roaming the countryside, disguised as a scarecrow. At some point, Hans Trapp became consumed with the idea of tasting human flesh. He lured a shepherd boy to his death, then cooked him over a fire. Before Hans Trapp could take his first bite, however, God, finally feeling that things have gone too far, struck him with lightning. Hans Trapp died, but he returned sometimes on Christmas to go from door to door looking for young, tasty children. Icelandic Christmas folklore depicts mountain-dwelling characters and monsters who come out to town during Christmas. The stories are directed at children and are used to scare them into good behavior. The folklore includes both mischievous pranksters who leave gifts during the night and monsters who eat disobedient children. Gryla is a giantess with an appetite for the flesh of mischievous children, whom she cooks in a large pot. Her husband is lazy and mostly stays at home in their cave. The Yule Cat is a huge and vicious cat who lurks about the snowy countryside during Christmas time and eats people who have not received any new clothes to wear before Christmas Eve. Gryla, the giantess, is first mentioned in 13th century texts such as the Icelandic saga, but not explicitly connected with Christmas until the 17th century. She is enormous, and her appearance is repulsive. The oldest poems about Gryla describe her as a parasitic beggar. She walks around asking parents to give her their disobedient children. Her plans can be thwarted by giving her food or chasing her away. Originally, she lived in a small cottage, but in later poems, she appears to have been forced out of town and into a remote cave. Current-day Gryla can detect children who are misbehaving year-round. She comes from the mountains during Christmas time to search the nearby towns for her meal. She leaves her cave, hunts children, and carries them home in her giant sack. She devours children as her favorite snack. Her favorite dish is a stew of naughty kids, for which she has an insatiable appetite. The Yule Cat, a huge and vicious cat who is described as lurking about the snowy countryside during Christmas time and eating people who have not received any new clothes to wear before Christmas Eve. He is the house pet of Gryla and her sons. Although referred to as an ancient tradition, written accounts of the Yule Cat have only been located as recently as the 19th century. The threat of being eaten by the Yule Cat was used by farmers as an incentive for their workers to finish processing the autumn wool before Christmas. The ones who took part in the work would be rewarded with new clothes, but those who did not would get nothing and thus be preyed upon by the monstrous cat. MARI LWYD is a Welsh custom found in South Wales. The tradition entails the use of an eponymous hobby horse, which is made from a horse's skull, mounted on a pole and carried by an individual hidden under a sackcloth. The custom was first recorded in 1800, with subsequent accounts of it being produced in the early 20th century. According to these, the MARI LWYD was a tradition performed at Christmas time by groups of men who would accompany the horse on its travels around the local area, and although the makeup of such groups varied, they typically included an individual to carry the horse, a leader, and individuals dressed as stock characters such as Punch and Judy. The men would carry MARI LWYD to local houses where they would request entry through song. The householders would be expected to deny them entry, again through song, and the two sides would continue their responses to one another in this manner. If the householders eventually relented, the team would be permitted entry and given food and drink. The MARI LWYD itself consists of a horse's skull that is decorated with ribbons and affixed to a pole. To the back of the skull is attached a white sheet, which drapes down to conceal both the pole and the individual carrying this device. On occasion, the horse's head was represented not by a skull, but instead made from wood or even paper. In some instances, the horse's jaw was able to open and close as a result of string or lever attached to it. An observer of the tradition as it was performed during the 19th century noted the preparation for the activity was a communal event, with many locals involving themselves in decorating of the MARI LWYD. Frau Perchta is a witch who comes to see who has been naughty or nice. She slits the bellies of the bad children and stuffs their corpses with straw. Perchta, or Berchta, was once known as a goddess in Alpine paganism in the Upper German and Austrian regions of the Alps. In some descriptions, Perchta has two forms. She may appear either as beautiful and white and snow like her name, or as elderly and haggard. In many old descriptions, Perchta had one large foot, sometimes called a goosefoot or swanfoot. In the Tyrol, she appears as a little old woman, with a very wrinkled face, bright lively eyes, and a long hooked nose. Her hair is disheveled, her garments tattered and torn. Perchta emerged from an amalgamation of Germanic and pre-Germanic, probably Celtic traditions of the Alpine regions after the migration period in the early Middle Ages. Initially, Perchta was the upholder of cultural taboos, such as the prohibition against spinning on holidays. In the folklore of Bavaria and Austria, Perchta was said to roam the countryside at midwinter and to enter homes during the 12 days between Christmas and Epiphany. She would know whether the children and young servants of the household had behaved well and worked hard all year. If they had, they might find a small silver coin the next day in a shoe or pail. If they had not, she would slit their bellies open, remove their stomach and guts, and stuff the whole with straw and pebbles. She was particularly concerned to see that girls had spun the whole of their allotted portion of flax or wool during the year. She would also slit people's bellies open and stuff them with straw if they ate something on the night of her feast day other than the traditional meal of fish and gruel. The cult of Perchta, under which followers left food and drink for Frau Percht and her followers in the hope of receiving wealth in abundance, was commended in Bavaria in 1468. Later, canonical and church documents characterized Perchta as synonymous with other leading female spirits. Today, in Austria particularly, where she is said to wander through Hohensalzburg Castle in the dead of the night, the Perchten are still a traditional part of holidays and festivals such as the Carnival Fastnacht. The wooden animal masks made for the festivals are today called Perchten. Krampus, from the German word meaning claw, is a horned anthropomorphic demon-like figure that originates in the central and eastern Alpine folklore of Europe, which predates Christianity. In traditional parades around December the 5th, young men dress up as the horned demon and attempt to scare the audience with their masks. Although Krampus appears in many variations, most share some common physical characteristics. He is usually hairy, brown or black, and has the cloven hooves and horns of a goat. His long, pointed tongue lolls out, and he has fangs. Krampus carries chains thought to symbolize the binding of the devil by the Christian church. He thrashes the chains for dramatic effect. The chains are sometimes accompanied with bells of various sizes. Of more pagan origins is the root, a bundle of birch branches that Krampus carries and with which he occasionally swats children. The birch branches are replaced with a whip in some representations. Sometimes Krampus appears with a sack or a basket strapped to his back. This is to cart off evil children for drowning, eating, or transportation to hell. Some of the older versions make mention of naughty children being put in the bag and taken away. The feast of St. Nicholas is celebrated in parts of Europe on the 6th of December. On the preceding evening of the 5th of December, Krampus night or Krampusnacht, the wicked hairy devil appears on the streets, sometimes accompanying St. Nicholas and sometimes on his own. Krampus visits homes and businesses. The saint usually appears in the eastern rite vestments of a bishop, and he carries a golden ceremonial staff. Unlike North American versions of Santa Claus, in these celebrations, St. Nicholas concerns himself only with the good children, while Krampus is responsible for the bad. Nicholas dispenses gifts, while Krampus supplies coal and the root. In recent years, the Krampus has become a bit of a problem, with the costumed individual's tendency to get drunk, getting into fights, and destroying property. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this special Christmas edition of Shadow Matter. 7 dark Christmas traditions from around the world. This will be the last video of the year, and I will be taking a break and return to uploading more content early in the new year. Thanks for all your support throughout the year. It has been greatly appreciated. It's been truly overwhelming, and I can't thank you all enough. I wish you all a Merry Christmas, and have a Happy New Year. Cheers. Have a good one.